I'm sure the vast majority of my viewers are familiar with what's on their screen. It's called the Baltic Sea Anomaly. On the seabed in the Baltic Sea, there is this very strange, round, well, they call it an anomaly, but consensus is at one time it was a craft, evidenced by the 1,000-foot long skid mark behind it, where it clearly crashed on the seafloor. Now, there are a lot of different images of this, and I've even shown some places very early on in the investigation of places in Antarctica that kind of show this same type of anomaly, but none like what I'm about to show you today. I mean, it's very, very clear that whatever that is, it's not natural. Being able to explain exactly what it is, that's a whole different bar to get over. But I'm going to try to put these side by side and show you this. Let me see if I can get that on the screen. There we go. All right, now I'm going to zoom out here. Giant skid mark. And when you zoom in on the area where there would be an impact, the snow is all darker and changed underneath it. It looks like there's a spot where maybe 3 parts might have come off, maybe a 4th smaller one. And this is the crash site. Now I want you to look at this and that and tell me that's not the same thing. Virtually identical. Once again, I'll give you the location. This is in the January 17th, 2013 layer of Google Earth Pro in Antarctica. And I'm going to try to, there we go. That's pretty much that. Now, the location in Antarctica gets better. I'm going to zoom out and show you everything. Now, there's some very strange, and we'll leave the discussion of what could cause them for another day, kind of serpent-like weirdness around it. But leaving this crash site, there's tracks. And if you follow those tracks up through here, they'll take you someplace where it's very, very clear the light is coming from underneath. This is not the lighting of the sun. This is not natural lighting. I'll zoom out to give you a bigger perspective of where the ship is. Here's the ship. Here's the path. Down here. And when you zoom in, that's artificial lighting from beneath. Without any doubt. That's a crashed craft, and there's a civilization or something or somebody down there that's aware of it, and somebody lived through it and got to this location. Because you can clearly see the tracks. Now here's the weirdness about the tracks. When you look at them, they almost are serpent-like themselves. And they take you right back to it. I don't know how big the Baltic Sea Anomaly is, but we're going to go ahead and measure this in feet. We'll give it the benefit of the doubt and say somewhere between 60 and 70 feet long. So I'm sure there's probably some expert out there that can tell me how big that anomaly is on the Baltic Sea floor. But let me see if I can put these up side by side again. That's pretty close. Especially when you couple in the fact that they both have these long skid marks behind them. I mean, you can see that the half moon shape here, this one. You could even make the allegation maybe that this graft or this graft, either one, is flipped over from the other one, but they're basically the same image with the cutout in the middle and the round shape. And speaking of the round shape, there's actually another place I wanted to show you. Very near here, where there's not one, but two very clear saucers on the ground. Here's one in the ice. This one's a little bit tougher because you're like, well, what's going on here? I think that's the part that's embedded in the ice. But tell me that's not a saucer right there. This one's virtually perfect. And of course, right next to some open water. And there's tracks following that too. There's evidence here as well, but not nearly as conclusive. And I guess the last thing I'll show you is something a little bit different. But it goes to this idea of identifying what you're looking at before you try to figure out what it is. And it's in the same region here in Antarctica. Okay, looking at this mountaintop, we can see that up here there's clearly water. It's very blue. It's frozen, and it looks like it's just part of this, what might have been a glacier at one time. But then we look over here, and we see this very, very dark patch. Now, we know that's not a shadow because of the way the light's casting. It's the light's on our right here. Well, it could also be water. It's just the light's hitting it differently. So let's assume that. This is also just a pool of water. Zooming in on this pool of water. Now, it might be a stretch to say that that's 4 little baby serpents looking up at you. And I'm sure a lot of you are like, okay, now you're reaching, now you're stretching. There is no way that's the case. You can maybe even make case for a tiny, small 5th one down here. You would have to then ask, well, if those are 4 baby serpents at a little tiny serpent's nest, where would mom be? I'm glad you asked. Because down here, just below, there's another little pool of water. And look what's in it. We have the head, the neck, and the body. Of another serpent-like creature right nearby. Now, is this conclusive? No. But man, is it a coincidence that in these 2 bodies of water, very dark, possibly connected through this mountain, we see a large serpent, and we see the heads of look to be perhaps 4 little baby serpents. And I want you guys to focus on this one in the lower right. How many people that have reported Nessie or Champ or this type of creature have reported the creature having a head like a horse, which for me precludes the whole story about it being eels, and especially Loch Ness or Lake Champlain. Does this not look like the head of a horse? And almost the same over here. And look, I know this is blurry and not conclusive at all. But they do stick out in a very strange way. And I'm trying to adjust the camera here while I'm talking to you to show this the very best that I can. There are things, and like I said, this is the January 17th of 2013 layer. You won't pick this up with brand new imagery. It just seems really odd. Especially coupled with all the other stuff that we found. By themselves, these two things wouldn't be conclusive, but if you would put this together with all of the other serpent imagery we have uncovered in the last 6 months, pretty damning. Especially when mainstream science has stories out about excavating the bones of these kinds of animals, mosasaurs and elasmosaurs. You can look that up. That was on Fox. That was on Nat Geo. All sorts of other science publications that they have confirmed that these animals did live down here. And last thing. In these mountains, we're at about 10,000 feet here. And when you look closely, there's foliage growing everywhere. This means there's liquid water, which means that things are melting, which may be uncovering things that people didn't see before, that might have looked 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and that's why you can find it now and not then. I get that question a lot. How come nobody else has found these kind of stuff? Well, maybe this is why. Just to theorize. But huge patches of green growing at 10,000 feet above sea level. And I guess I'll just leave that there. Like, share, subscribe. Thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.